Nicole Radke, a hypnotherapist that specializes in regression, particularly quantum healing hypnosis. I am a trans channel and a medical medium, and I explore beyond quantum healing, beyond quantum communication. And in my work with hundreds of people, I continue to find the connection between death, life, ancient history, extraterrestrial encounters, time, and the function of DNA, and what's happening to you at this point in time, a man-made construct. And together we bring it into a cohesive whole. We are time travelers within the collective streams of consciousness. As multidimensional beings, we've been experiencing many adventures in life and body choices, relationships, and other dream realities. We share space with other beings, and that is happening more and more. This is not a concept that is familiar to many humans at this time. We will be talking about hybrids, soul journeys, the change of reincarnation, which is no longer applicable to us or is no longer working in the same system, ultra-terrestrial life forms, and Beyond the Veil, The Collective Stories of Us is a book that I wrote that follows the story of 14 ordinary people who explore the journey of their soul and discover universal knowledge that is helpful for all humanity to understand problems in our daily lives. And this is very important to me, that the information is practical and that we can apply that to our daily lives. And they find their purpose, and we also get to take a peek at the evolution of human consciousness and the evolution of man. We will talk about ancient history and past lives. We will discuss how karma is dead. Extraterrestrial lives. Have you ever thought about that? That maybe you've lived a life in a different kind of body, in a different sort of place. We will discuss DNA and healing, new energies that is helping humanity at this time, and creator beings who lift the veil. So join us on this journey as we explore these different themes, different topics, and expand our awareness, expand our mind, expand our capacity for understanding diversity and compassion. And it really is an exciting time that we are in. A funny thing happened on the way to the future. The notion of past lives, reincarnation, and life before or after death is still such an alien concept to modern man. Yet it is accepted in some form or fashion by almost every major religion in ancient culture and history. And there is a misconception that everyone probably remembers past lives as famous people. And that is simply not true. It's actually really rare. Most often we find that it is an ordinary person who had an association with a famous or historical figure. And so we can look at the Hollywood star Shirley MacLaine, who had for decades openly discussed her past lives and belief in extraterrestrial friends. She says that she was once a Moorish peasant girl who had relations with Charlemagne the Great, ruler of the Roman Empire. And what is interesting here is that this is where our current day Gregorian calendar, the Julian calendar, originated from, which is later discussed in the concept of time. But she apparently helped cure impotence in men. And in another, she recalls being an androgynous human in Lemuria, a pre-Atlantean civilization. And MacLaine says, "My state of being and that of others around me was peaceful and serene. Procreation occurred through the power of the mind in deep meditation. Each of us had male and female genitalia, but what was important was the desire of the soul, which was made manifest through connecting to the God source within. Each human had an equivalent vibration of yin and yang, male and female, that duality. Then at some point, the sexes became separate. We just assume that the sexes have always been separate because this is what we've been told by the higher ups. And so what if this is just all allegorical? Well, then there is still a lot that you can learn from a life like that. The truth is that you are much more likely to remember a past life living in a cave than royalty. And I really don't even like using the concept of past because what we're working with is outside of time and space as we know it. But as humans, we like to label things. We like to understand things in a linear, simplified way. And so we think of them as past. And it's such a human trait for us to poke fun at each other for our opinions, our beliefs, and thinking, calling them absurdities instead of examining our true belief systems. What do you believe? Rather than worry about what you ought to dismiss, how about looking forward to a new, incredible journey and insight? And so what do you think you know about our past? Our modern day knowledge of history is limited to what? About 5, 6, 7,000 years? This is just recorded history. And if we are generous, the oldest discovered form of coherent writing is from 30,000 years ago. We can't even imagine 200 or 300 years ago. How can we even begin to fathom something like 30,000 years ago there were humans, beings living on this planet, and they were able to communicate to each other in writing? The earliest date to which fossils have been traced is 600 million years before you were born. This planet Earth and its inhabitants have been through changes that we cannot even begin to comprehend. Civilizations have come and gone, erased by the winds of time. The time erased. Continents have shifted, some by forces of man and others by that of nature. In 1945, Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb, witnessed the modern world's first nuclear explosion at the Trinity test site in New Mexico. It is interesting that the Trinity represents mind, body, spirit. Or you could think of it as mind, heart, and soul. Shortly after Oppenheimer witnessed this event, this is what came to his mind. And he was quoted as saying, "I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him, take on his multi-armed form, and says, 'Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.' I suppose we all thought that one way and another." The ancient Vedic writings from the Indus Valley in India, now the Thar Desert, are full of descriptions of ancient warfare, and archaeological evidence shows that radioactive dust from an atomic blast dating back thousands of years, which destroyed most of the buildings and probably 500,000 people. If we are to look toward the possibilities of the future, we need to understand what was possible in the past. And this is a good time to mention that I mean on all timelines, in all dimensions and all realities, all belief systems, not just our singular linear idea of time. The diversity of animal and plant life is a reminder of the potential that exists in this plane, on this density, and evidence that we are not as alone as we think we are. This earth is on a persistent and continual trajectory toward understanding the multidimensional universe that we live in. And since 2012, we've taken ourselves to the very edge of the universe and discovered the soft waves of consciousness in ourselves, and that we never thought that that was even possible. And that's definitely increasing. Recently, we've reached this cliffhanger where you look at the violence and you think, oh my God, we've surrounded ourselves with all this crap. But if you stand back and you just take a breath and really see it for what it is, what are the patterns that we keep repeating over and over? You see it for what it really is. And you begin to realize that it is only a background of reflection for your own inner being, finding your own reality. A way to measure and adjust where you belong in relation to all of this is beginning to have an understanding of the reality that you live in and how you contribute to the whole. Do you love or hate or fear or unite? And in the past, we had to pick sides. We still, right now, that battle is going on. Which side do you pick? And we would say, pick no side, that there needs to be unification. And so we are all faced with a choice of where are we going from here? It is getting into a space where you decide which side you are on, and are you going to continue living in the unconscious state, or do you want to be awake? Do you want to be aware? The physical world is the stars and the galaxy with everything that happens in it that we can experience with these physical bodies. In the non-physical world, there is a fog blanketing a new type of world, a convergence of many realities. We can't even begin to fathom what that would look like, feel like, but we are seeing the evidence of that, the early stages. And so we are aware of the before unseen dimensions as a new earth emerges, a new reality emerges out of a time rift separating past and future systems. Time itself is changing. It is falling away. It's dissipating. We're breaking those cycles. Time will not matter when you can travel outside of it, when you can exist outside of time. And it seems like a really big concept, but there is a simplicity to it. Time will not matter in the way that it does now. We are emerging into multidimensional realities where you really can see past lives and future lives and connect them together simultaneously. You can take that concept sideways, upwards, downwards, it doesn't matter. You will know how they are connected to you in this reality. And this remembrance will develop into a clear vision of what you are and what mission you have chosen, what sort of job are you going to do here, how are you going to create. You are, have a creation power within you. You create your thoughts and your creativity that is always driving you, is just latent in there. So it is a conscious decision to step out and connect with the future and past trajectories as you help to move along Earth and its new evolutionary path. You will connect with others mentally and emotionally to get through this change, and you are already doing it. You are already connecting with people in that way, which, by the way, You may not realize how long you've actually been doing that. You will learn new ways of living, new ways of being, new sorts of transportation. If we live in multidimensional universes, there are multiple Earths existing, if you want to think of it that way, at the same time. And we can access any of these dimensions that are appropriate to us, and that's very important. The implication is that there are multitudes of everything. When we set out to embark on our own adventures we call a life, we gather vast quantities of knowledge about living and existence, where the infinite unseen becomes visible within the limitations of physical boundaries within belief systems and constructs. And until now, for most of you, the concept of past lives have been somewhat limited to Earth and a singular afterlife, the idea of heaven. And what it comes down to is that you better make this life a good one, play by the rules, right? I'm here to communicate to you that you have been around since the beginning. Your very concept of what the beginning of all of this is anyway. And we'll get into that later. But our history is filled with stories of ordinary heroes, compassionate souls, courageous and inspiring souls who traveled across galaxies and through time to help you live a happy life. And on the other side of this love is joy and hope. And if you live in fear, then the possibility of your reality might be the need for a fallout bunker that you built in the backyard, or perhaps your reality, like mine, is where people love one another, where we respect our differences and unite in that way, where people find unity and wholeness, and where our collective consciousness resonates through all dimensions and timelines, where time just falls away. And I think that's important to differentiate between a one consciousness, where there's this idea of kind of losing your individuality, as opposed to wholeness, which is just an agreement, harmony of all the parts that make up the whole. It has been talked about and predicted throughout recorded history by those tuned into the higher levels of reality, the shamans, the priests, the connected in our own lifetime consciousness teachers such as Gandhi, Princess Diana, Eckhart Tolle have inspired us to think about this. And my own mentor, Dolores Cannon, the founder of the quantum healing hypnosis technique that I also use for my own work, can be credited with bringing this topic to the forefront of today's discussion with her groundbreaking work in past life regression and in reincarnation. And she considered herself a historian and a finder, researcher, collector of lost knowledge. It's important to also understand that the history that we know, that we've been taught, that we read in our books, that we see movies made about, have been glamorized in some way. The emotion has been stripped out of it. It's just the facts. And as helpful as those are, what was it like living in a time when the Romans ruled the world? What was it like living an ordinary life in a place like that? This is where we really, really learn what human nature is all about. And so there's also the ethnobotanist and psychonaut Terence McKenna, who really shook things up since the 70s with his controversial consciousness inquiries and trialogues with biologist Rupert Sheldrake and mathematician Ralph Abrams. And again, this is not a new concept, but what is new is our awareness of perception of what we are. You are here to help others and support them in their journeys also. Individual access to the senses and these other dimensional realities is becoming more apparent, and we are figuring out how to live in a new world where you were once limited to your 5 physical senses, but that's rapidly changing. The ancients believed that humans had over 360 senses within our consciousness. And so just last night, as I was cozily snuggled into bed with my hubby, when out of the blue I had a vision of the local McDonald's fast food restaurant in our town, which, by the way, has not passed my lips in several years. And but it was amusing to me because at the same time as I started laughing about that and shared this thought that I was just craving, this McDonald's hamburger, he replied that so was he. He was thinking about the same thing at the same time. And the synchronicity of that, shows that we are connected. There's something happening that we are all connected in that way. The theory of quantum entanglement. But we briefly tried to figure out what came first. Was it the chicken or the egg? Did I think about it, or did you think about it? And it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. But the point is that we are all connected through our senses. To me, the senses are like speaking a language. And that's what I've been working on for many, many years, is becoming fluent in that language, being able to help others and teach others how to also become fluent. And so today we know too much. We are too advanced to blindly believe in the apocalyptic religious teachings of the past just because someone told you so. My philosophy is whatever works for you is just fine, as long as you know why you believe what you do. And we have beliefs about everything. This is not about just religious beliefs, although that is a part of it. And I'm not singling any particular belief out, but we have belief about the tiniest things. And you'd be surprised when you start looking at your day and just the things that you do, how many belief systems you really have. But as long as it doesn't harm you or it doesn't harm others, then, believe what you want. And, I always wondered why Eve wouldn't eat from the tree of knowledge in the biblical account of the creation story. It really baffled me. Why would knowledge be bad when we're continually pushing education, knowledge, learning? So that just never made sense to me. So I would guess I would say my childhood Presbyterian affiliation has been replaced by a belief in love. That's just an easier concept for me to understand and work with. Unfortunately, fear has been used to rule this planet in order to keep the populace compliant to the laws of man, to the constructs of expectations. We have to come out from under the veil of forgetfulness and know ourselves, remember who we are and why we are here. You are embarking on your own journey where you decide, and by extension, collectively, what a consciousness life like this is to be. What is the civilizations of the future going to be built upon? We are planting those seeds right now. It is a moment in the entirety of all existence. Really sit with that for a moment. this moment that you're in right now is a moment in the entirety of all existence. When you leave this moment, you will see the contribution you had through the reality you created throughout all your lives, just from you being you. Dimensional shifts are happening all the time. Your soul understands the inner workings of such a multiverse. And you might not believe in past lives or extraterrestrial life. Although if you're reading this book, Beyond the Veil, or if you're listening to any of the discussions that I have, then odds are, pretty slim that hasn't piqued your interest. But, to that I would say, so what? It doesn't matter. It is not a requirement. I prefer to think of it as other lives anyway, because in my reality, time is not a straight line, but more a jumbled form of organized chaos. It doesn't matter anyway, because you are more than what you think, and you will understand what you can, you will receive what you need, even if your analytical mind thinks it's fantasy or a metaphor. That's why I say it's a language, it's like communication. And hopefully you will feel the energy behind these words, and so you don't have to be so surprised if maybe you feel sleepy or even energized at times during these discussions. This is an interactive experience. As you're listening to this, you're also experiencing it. And there's no safety belt required. There is nothing that we need to protect ourselves from, because we are innately protected always. And so whatever works for you, as long as you get the message, what level of dimension do you want to go into? What earth do you want to live on? What spiritual plane of reality do you want to have an adventure in?